So any true conservative should want the NRA abolished. Honestly, anybody in the United States should want the NRA abolished. But before I tell you why any true Republican, true conservative should want to see the NRA left in the dust of history books, I want to lay out some basic facts about my life, because I think I have a lot more in common with other Americans than not. You see, the first time I was ever around guns, I was around 7 or 8, just a young lad. It's a family reunion. I was with my dad and a couple of his brothers, my uncles, and one of my uncles likes guns. He owns a couple handguns, a couple rifles. He actually owns an old AK-47. But that day, when there was this family reunion, when I was about 7 or 8, I think it was 8, he decided to get 2 12-gauge shotguns, a couple clay pigeons, and we went out into the woods. And once we got into the woods, we loaded up those clay pigeons, shot them out in the sky. He handed me a 12-gauge shotgun, and I went up, I took aim, fired, and I missed, totally missed. But we kept doing it. Loaded up another clay pigeon, my uncle standing beside me, he had a shotgun, we would compete. And eventually, after a couple of shots, I hit one, and there was nothing more fulfilling and rewarding than seeing that clay pigeon just explode in the sky. It was quite enjoyable. There is a deep, visceral pleasure in seeing you load that shotgun, pull that trigger, and just see that clay pigeon explode a millisecond later. It's great fun. And because of that, it radically, I think, shifted my opinion on guns. I also grew up in a small town in the Midwest where fathers would take their sons hunting every fall. It was standard to go down in the basements during the winter. You're hanging out with, when I was in middle school and high school, hanging out with my friends, their basements. They would have the hunting rifles locked up in a glass container, and you go look at them. You admire them. Wow, look at this nice scope on this rifle. Heck, when I lived in Kansas, I remember being around families that they would pull out handguns, 9mm, pass them around, show them off like art. Like it was true art. They admire the craftsmanship, the firepower of it. It's no different than art collecting for a lot of people. It's a nice piece of mechanical engineering, and often fun to shoot. There's no way around that. But at the same time, I'm also very liberal. I would check all the boxes of being a liberal person. I honestly don't care what anybody does in their private life. I think rich people shouldn't keep getting tax cuts. I think they should pay more money. I think there should be also a corporate tax rate that's higher. I think we should raise the capital gains tax. For all intents and purposes, I'm what you would consider a liberal. Heck, I live in New York City and I'm a journalist. If that doesn't say liberal all over it, then I don't know what does. That says MSM right there. Mainstream media, maybe sellout on the side. Small parentheses. But the thing that I think I have in common with a lot of other people is that I'm liberal on everything except for guns. Where I see a lot of my fellow Americans that I know, fathers, brothers, friends, have always handled guns responsibly. Not only have they handled guns responsibly, they've used it as a bonding technique between families, between friends, as a tradition, whether that be hunting or just shooting clay pigeons like I did with my uncle. And because of that, there's a real opportunity for another gun lobbying group. Because the NRA, who does it represent? Is it representing conservatives? No, it's not really. The NRA has a membership of only 5 million people. There is way more than 5 million Americans that own guns, use guns, and like to shoot guns regularly. There's way more than 5 million people. But the NRA only has 5 million people. In fact, the NRA's budget, you know how much money they have? Around $100 million a year. That's not that much for a Washington, D.C., big, powerful lobbyist industry. That's not that much. So what gives? Actually, you know when they make money? Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. But their big years that they make money is right after mass shootings. Because people give money to the NRA thinking that then suddenly their guns are going to get taken away. That they're not going to be able to, go hunting, or go shoot clay pigeons, or heck, just free some newspaper and try out something they saw on Mythbusters in their backyard. They're scared that that's going to get taken away. And the NRA gins that up a little bit. They prey on people's fears that, the liberals, the Democrats are in Congress, or now they're president, they're going to issue an executive order, and suddenly those guns are going to disappear tomorrow. And so people get scared, and when they get scared, they give money to the NRA. But the NRA, what have they done? Heck, they give themselves 6-figure salaries and they fly around on a private jet. Wayne LaPierre, you think he represents us, you, anybody? He doesn't represent conservatives. He certainly doesn't represent liberals, but even run-of-the-mill conservatives he doesn't represent. What kind of run-of-the-mill conservative gets on some national Republican stage with some old rifle waving it about like some goofy 2-bit hack, and then gets on his private jet and flies around to another city with his penthouse in New York City and DC. He's not representing any conservatives. He's representing himself. He's representing the NRA. And the NRA's job is to keep the NRA alive. But that leaves an opportunity, because there's millions upon millions upon millions of Americans that I think are liberal, but also don't go all the way liberal with the side of guns, that see and respect other adults owning guns. And they can see it as patronizing when liberals, Democrats, say, well, we need to eliminate guns. That, adults can't use guns or can't own guns. When in reality, there are more thoughtful, complex ways to tackle this issue. Because many Americans, both conservatives, liberals, doesn't matter who you are, I think recognize there are mass shootings. There is a lot of gang violence, whether it be gun related, in inner cities, or suicides, whatever it may be. And there are ways of tackling this issue that both sides of the party want to see done. But the NRA hasn't helped in that. Heck, even there's some basic solutions. If we got together, there was an American for Thoughtful Gun Ownership group, a new lobbyist group that competed against the NRA. AGO, that's got a great initialism as it is, Americans for the Thoughtful Gun Ownership. And they said, you know what, we're going to protect people's rights as Americans to own a firearm because it's ingrained in, one, the Second Amendment, but two, just in what it means to be an American. And we respect that, and respect that most adults enjoy guns and can handle guns responsibly. We have no problem with you owning a gun, owning multiple guns, but at the same time, we're going to take thoughtful measures to try to deal with the ills in our society. We're going to try to pass stronger background checks. We're going to close loopholes at gun shows where you can just, buy and sell a gun somewhat under the table. We're going to make sure you can't just sell a gun on Facebook without any paperwork. Heck, we're going to maybe treat it like an age problem. You know what the main demographic of people that commit mass shootings are? Young men. They're both the ones that are shooting up schools and blowing themselves up in the Middle East. So what do? Well, maybe we treat it like rental cars. You know what rental cars agencies did? They did the actuary tables. They realized the biggest risk is young men getting in cars and getting in auto accidents. So we're not going to rent to them. We don't rent to them until they're 25. So maybe that's what we should do with gun ownership. Raise the age up. Say, you know what? It's too much of a risk. By the time you're 25, you can own a gun. Your hormones have leveled out more. You're more thoughtful. Maybe you have more to lose. Then you can buy a gun and be a responsible gun owner. But just like we don't allow a 22-year-old to go get in a rental car because we know, one, statistically they're more likely to get in a crash, maybe we just raise the gun ownership. Sometimes when you have situations like this that are complex, non-linear systems, small differences in initial conditions can have large varieties in outcome. And maybe sometimes just using an X-Acto knife to slowly, methodically, but thoughtfully change how we approach gun laws in the United States and our country, a lot of people could get around. That's partly why any true conservative should want to see the NRA abolished, because there's better ways for a group to represent your interests while also representing the interests of all Americans. And partly it's my tribe, if we want to call that, the liberals' fault. A lot of liberals seem arrogant. They didn't grow up around guns. They grew up in a big city where there was no guns, no hunting. And we as humans intrinsically fear the unknown. We get scared of what we don't understand. And so when you don't grow up around guns, you, one, don't understand them very much, but two, you don't take the time to learn about them. And sometimes it's hard to take liberals seriously when they don't even know what AR stands for. When they just think AR-15 is an assault rifle when it actually stands for armor light rifle, it's really hard for me, let alone probably some staunch conservative, to believe that this liberal or these Democrats are going to think thoughtfully and complexly about the legislation they're going to pass around gun laws. If they can't even be bothered to educate themselves on the basic names of rifles, how the heck are they going to pass any sort of detailed, legitimate, let's be honest, adult legislation on dealing with our gun problems in the United States? On top of that, the idea that the amount of guns we have in the United States is the problem, one, it's a moot issue. It's a bit like social media. We might decide you can't take it away. Once it's there, you can't take it away. We might, as a society, recognize, like, man, Twitter is so toxic, maybe we should just take it back. But you can't take Twitter back, even if it is really toxic. It's already there. Everybody's already using it. It's never going to be taken back. Same with guns. There's so many guns in the United States, that is a moot point. There's no way we're going to take guns back. But even if we did, I'm not sure. In fact, it's hard to prove that just because there's a prevalence in something, that is the causatory result of it. It's like saying we could take the same logic and apply it to the Netherlands. they have a lot of different laws than we do. Marijuana is legal. Prostitution is legal. And then we could say, well, that's why the Netherlands, the Dutch have such a problem with prostitution, because it's way more prevalent. But they don't have a problem with prostitution, or everybody smoking weed, just because it's more prevalent in that society. It's post hoc ergo propter hoc. Causation does not equal correlation. In fact, there's probably way more nuanced, complex variables going on in the United States that cause the level of mass shootings we have than just the prevalence of guns in our society. Like I said, it's imagining, one, other people complexly and understanding that most adults can use guns entirely responsibly and that it's patronizing to tell them they can't. And that's a great way to alienate other people that would otherwise be on your side as a liberal and be willing to meet you halfway and pass some reasonable, thoughtful legislation on the subject. Instead, get them to be pushed into a corner where their only option is to give money to the NRA because they feel like the only voice they have is the NRA, even when the NRA really isn't the voice for conservatives. Anyway, just a thought. Curious to see what you guys think. Just your New York City, yuppie, liberal, socialist, commie, Upper West Side guy giving his take. But leave a comment down below. If you want to watch another video on journalism or what it's like in the media industry, click right here. Thanks for watching, guys. See you tomorrow. Bye.